This content is for informational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Nothing contained on here constitutes a solicitation, recommendation, endorsement, or offer by Draper Goren Holm or any third-party service provider to buy or sell any securities or other financial instruments whatsoever.
Hey everyone, it is me. We are here. Joseph is here too. Say hi, Joseph.
Hey, what's up?
Boom, boom, boom. We're recording.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
I am recording this on the computer now.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Boom. All right. It says it's recording. Boom, 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 boom. I am apparently recording.
The entire bottle of control. They're all exactly the same.
Crypto art, and then what it really is an NFT.
Wow. Eddie wants to slap the bag.
So this is the next best thing.
DeFi is going to be a bubble.
It's provably scarce.
With Mad Dog.
Crypto, gold, and silver.
Transparent substance.
Take my money, start a war with it.
Without further ado.
Cheers to you, brother.
Get shit done.
Because the system has to collapse before that.
Corona.
Cheers, I feel much better now.
Cheers.
Wow, that was heavy.
Boom. We are live. Welcome to Blockchain and Booze number 132. This is going to be a fun one. We've talked about this a little in advance, but hold on, I'm just checking the stream here. There we go. So we talked about this a little bit in advance a few weeks ago, but I'm excited to have Corey back. You guys know Corey, and this is Peter's first time on. Cheers, friends in the chat. Cheers, Peter. Welcome. Actually, before I jump in and ask you guys to introduce yourselves, I want to do my proper homework, which is first thanking Lunar Crush for letting us stream on your Twitter account on Lunar Crush Live, and to Blockchain Radio for then resharing this afterwards and syndicating it and getting it all over the place. And just a reminder to everyone, although I'm sure I'll talk about it a bunch more times, LA Blockchain Summit in November is coming up. Somebody asked earlier in the chat if we'll be doing some giveaways and things like that, and we definitely will leading up to the event. Punk Ape Strong is working on some drops that you will you may or may not receive that will give you a chance to win a ticket and all sorts of fun goofy stuff. But right now we're going to be talking DeFi on Arbitrum and Arbitrum in general. I'd like to learn more about the whole community and what Corey and Peter are doing. So let's start with you, Peter. Just give us your background. Tell us a little about you and you know what you're working on, and you know, welcome to Blockchain and Booze.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I am on the partnership team at Off-Chain Labs. So primarily I focus on DeFi and lately with gaming for Arbitrum Nova. My background is that I used to work at Parity and Tendermint. And so I did the whole kind of Cosmos, Polkadot gambit, and now I'm here in the Ethereum space helping to scale Ethereum. So yeah, really excited to be here today and chat more about DeFi.
Nice. And Off-Chain Labs is technically the company you work for. Are you guys the people who launched Arbitrum? Okay, so you guys are responsible for Arbitrum. Okay, cool. I have a million more questions, but Corey, reintroduce yourself to the crowd. I know the regulars are familiar with you, but anyone new here?
Corey Caplan, one of the two co-founders of Dolomite. We're building and about to soon launch a decentralized exchange on Arbitrum that focuses on margin trading and hedging capabilities. It's pretty unique as far as what its value propositions are, and exciting to talk more about that and DeFi and Arbitrum.
Nice. Yeah, I you know, those that know me in the community know I'm obsessed with DEXs, and I want everyone to trade on DEXs as much as humanly possible over centralized exchanges. So we should jump into that more deeply soon. But first, I wanna get the sort of high level Arbitrum stuff out of the way. So there are, there's Arbitrum is an EVM chain. I know there's like side chains versus layer 2s versus, standalone layer 1s, whatever. What is Arbitrum considered, and what kind of makes it different than one of the others?
Yeah, so Arbitrum's an optimistic rollup that's built on top of Ethereum, and what makes it different from, like, let's say like a Tendermint side chain or some other blockchain like Solana is that its security is rooted in Ethereum. So what we do is we handle the execution and the computation on the Arbitrum chain, and then we post the data back to Ethereum. So the unique value proposition in Arbitrum is that if Arbitrum goes down, you could still replay your transaction back on Ethereum, and that's where you get that Ethereum grade security.
Nice. So is that considered a layer 2, or is that?
Yeah, so it's a layer 2 optimistic rollup, which means that we optimistic meaning that there's 7 days for someone to kind of try to submit fraud if there is fraud on the chain, and then eventually the transactions are finalized, versus like a ZK rollup, which has more of these expensive ZK proofs, but has like quicker finality.
Yeah.
Adding to that.
Only reason I was asking, because I think one of the times I called something a side chain or a layer 2, and Corey corrected me, and he's like, "No, that one's a side chain." I was like,
that's why I'm already like pouncing on the opportunity to speak and add more to it. I think one of the strong distinctions between like that layer 2, as you mentioned, versus a side chain or a separate chain entirely is that replayability aspect, and the fact that it really sits on top of Ethereum, not adjacent to it, not somewhere else, not completely separate from it. Arbitrum's dependency as a rollup and as its own EVM compatible chain is sitting on top of Ethereum, and Ethereum continuing to thrive and produce blocks. And the fact that it keeps doing that allows Arbitrum to continue to do its work then. So one depends on the other, and that dependency is a really strong tie that other blockchains don't necessarily have, because they're producing their own security model and their own blocks to the beat of their own drum then.
Yeah, and one other thing I would add to that is Vitalik has a great post out called a rollup-centric Ethereum roadmap. I'm happy to link it here or share the post. But essentially, that's the future of Ethereum execution is with rollups, and I think Arbitrum's very much aligned with that future.
That's really cool. Yeah. If you want to send me that link in the private chat, I'll put it in the community chat room, and I'll also try to put it on all the socials. Something I forgot to say actually right off the bat that just reminded me is that if you are, I should fix this graphic. If you are watching on one of the live streams on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever, and you want to communicate with me while this is happening live and with the community, go to blockchainbooze.io. It'll redirect you to the new DGH events website. You might have to register if you haven't been there in a long time, and you'll be able to hop into the chat with some of the community members live. And then when we're done, you can turn on your camera and chat with the community too, which is really super fun. Any of you who are new, oh, cool. This is, I'm seeing the link here. And then anybody who's new and hasn't known about this yet, there's literally over 2 years of doing blockchain and booze, there's been startups that have been created from people meeting each other in the chat. There's been companies that DGH has invested in being created in the chat. And we've just made a shit ton of friends. It's going to be a lot of fun at LA Blockchain Summit to hang out with everyone in real life. So go in there, make some friends. Just because we're virtual doesn't mean we can't hang with each other. I just shared that link that Peter gave me in everywhere. So now, okay, so Arbitrum is optimistic rollup of Ethereum. I know there's a huge community there already. I know that I saw multiple NFT projects. I saw a lot of DeFi starting to be built there. I know Dolomite is going there soon, and we'll hear about that a little more. But can you give us like a high level what's happening in the community so far, what's being done. Like, should punk ape strong? Hold on, should my ape punk ape strong? Well, there's a good picture of him right here. Should he be releasing some NFTs on Arbitrum with maybe with some of his friends? I don't know.
Of course, we'd love to have more punks and more apes on Arbitrum. I guess what I'll do is I'll kind of walk it back and explain the history of Arbitrum and where we got to where we are today. And some of this kind of comes before my time, but I'm just kind of sharing what I know. So I believe the team initially released a testnet version of the product, but what was unique about the approach that the team took is it was this developer period where all developers could build. And I think this was critical because it helps to solve for dependency problems. So whether you need a Chainlink Oracle, you need a DAI stablecoin, you need Gnosis Safe, or whatever the product is, we gave this time period for all developers to build. And so by the time Arbitrum launched, it already had quite a few teams that went live in the beginning. Like, I want to say Sushi Swap, like Balancer Curve, like quite a few of these guys went live. Uniswap was one that came pretty early, and like that was something that the community wanted. And so Arbitrum's history really kind of started, more so on the DeFi side. Then we started seeing a lot of organic traction, on the NFT side with free minting. So that happened a lot with, Treasure. I think the Treasure team's done a great job of, growing their marketplace, the Trove marketplace. And that's where you've seen projects like, Small Brains and others that have launched on there. And more recently, we actually got support for OpenSea, thanks to a lot of the hard work that AJ and SizeChat and others put in to that. And that was really exciting. And so...
So now my Arbitrum NFTs are also showing up on OpenSea when I look at my wallet on there. If I go to pupu.eth's account on OpenSea, I see any Arbitrum NFTs he has.
Kind of. I mean, if you want to list your NFT on OpenSea, then it could show up on there.
For example, what I'm saying is, like, if I know for sure if I send an NFT on Ethereum to Corey and I look at Corey's account on OpenSea, it'll show up there. Even and same with Polygon. And so is Arbitrum now supported in that sense?
Yes, exactly. Cool. And I think that was huge because a lot of these artists and, a lot of people have kind of told us like, hey, we need OpenSea support because that's where a lot of the liquidity is. And so finally having that, I think, was pretty big. And then so that's where I'd say the community has been for the most part, is DeFi and NFTs. And then more recently, we launched another chain called Arbitrum Nova. Won't go into that too much, or maybe we can. But that was with Reddit and their community points, and we could talk about that a little later.
Okay, I did see that, and I didn't make the connection. I should have, but I didn't make the connection to Arbitrum in the moment or in my head because I just was. Again, I think I told you before we went live, but I should say this on here as well. Corey gave me a ton of excellent resources, some of which I'll share with the Blockchain Boost community. Like, I don't know, Corey, how long ago was that? Like 2 months ago that you shared it with me? And I honestly, it's probably longer, and I haven't had enough time to dive in, and I've been dying to. Ben in the chat said, they still haven't integrated Tezos. And that's probably because Tezos is its own standalone blockchain, and it's not as easy as adding another EVM to the mix. It's all new contracts, all new everything. And every single wallet address actually is a separate wallet. So like, if you look at something like, sorry, I'm just talking to the, Josh, I'm not drinking a huge glass of Jaeger. This is just Coke, maybe a little whiskey, but I didn't have any ice left. So there's cold Coke and whiskey. So
nice. But believe it or not, Corey's actually more of an OG than me. So he, correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but you've been in the space longer, and you were pretty early to DeFi.
I mean, if you were working at Parity, I'd imagine it's pretty close. I mean, generally crypto 2015, but didn't really dive into DeFi and programming in the blockchain environment until late 2017. Didn't start Dolomite until early 2018 then, and it was more of an accidental venture that turned into where we are today. But
Nice.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Where did you start with DeFi and I guess the larger crypto space? Like, what year was it around?
Yeah, I mean, I've been following DeFi. I want to say since 2018, since Maker came out, with DAI. But personally, I professionally, I've been in crypto since 2019 at Tendermint. So I think you may have edged me out there.
That's a close fight, though. But
For sure.
Cool.
So I guess something I'd like to ask, because there's, every sort of blockchain community has their differences and everything. And Corey, building Dolomite and what you guys were working on, you very early made it really clear to me when you explained it to me why. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. See, it's mostly unrelated, so I'll bring that up later. So, when you first told me what was going on with Dolomite and what you guys were building, you made it clear that Arbitrum was actually built in a way that is the right place for you guys to build. Can you tell the community a little bit about like what makes Arbitrum different than Polygon, for example, and why you chose one over the other?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say the distinction that you see with like other companies that make their choice of where they want to launch, they might choose where the users are or where like the other apps are, like if Uniswap is launched on there or Curve or some other dependency, as Peter put it. But for us, it was more so looking at like which environment offers a combination of cheap fees for the users so that they can do cool things for cheap costs, because Dolomite's on the more complex side in terms of what its computation looks like, its smart contracts. And because of that, on mainnet Ethereum, it would have been really expensive during the bull run. So we needed those cheap fees. But the other aspect of it is, as we've seen other chains try to solve that problem of lowering fees, they've unfortunately given on other areas when it comes to security. And so for us, we needed that those two things to come together, where we had cheap fees and really strong security. And looking at the landscape, it was clear to us that Arbitrum was the clear winner back then, which was about 6 months, a year ago or so, as we started to go down this rabbit hole. And it's most certainly still the case today. I think Arbitrum, by far and large, is the perfect solution for offering a combination of cheap fees while not skimping out in security, which is so important. And the proof is in the other projects and the growing DeFi community that's on there. We didn't need to look far of we need to have a Curve, we need to have a MakerDAO or some kind of stablecoin model on our chain in order to launch. We instead looked at it from that perspective of cheap fees and security, and everything was already there because of that. So we didn't need to go chasing for it necessarily. It was just looking for the right properties, and because of the right properties being in there, all the projects we would have wanted to work with were also on there as well.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a testament to what they're building if Balance or Uniswap and all the rest are there from pretty much day one. That's not normal on most of the other chains. I guess, tell me, I'm seeing links here to that we're gonna have to have. I see Kevin's in the chat already. We're gonna have to have a separate conversation just about OpenSea and Tezos, apparently, because just mentioning OpenSea supporting Arbitrum opened up a whole new can of worms amongst our Tezos loving, at least that portion of our community that loves Tezos, which I'm a part of as well. So we're gonna think. Kevin has a lot to say. Okay, we're gonna have to do that maybe next week, Kevin. Okay, but jumping back into it, right? So how active, I guess, when we talk about a growing community, there's a lot of different metrics, right? There's number of unique users, there's AUM sort of metrics for DeFi, there's floor prices for NFTs, but to me, it's active individual users is the most important thing, because I think of things very long term and not in the sense of like, hey, apes are worth a lot of money, that means Ethereum's the best. You can argue that Ethereum is the best because of the number of people and the amount that's being settled on there and things like that. But less than the price, right? I don't think the price matters as much. So let's talk, just giving some love to the community and what's going on in the chat right now. That's one of the reasons why I love Tezos, right? Like Tezos has one of the most active NFT communities, but the average dollar value is more akin to us trading baseball cards when we were kids and not $1 million paintings being sold, right? And I think that's a beautiful and important distinction. But let's talk about Arbitrum and talk about, usage. Are there a lot of people trading NFTs? Are there a lot of individuals participating in DeFi yet?
Yeah, I'll just spit out some metrics that I know off the top of my head. You can look at, and I can share some of these links here with the audience.
Yeah, I would, as we go, I would love, because for my own homework, and probably once the summit is over, it's probably going to be my first order of business is to really dive in deeply. I would love links to any resources and any of the big platforms and things like that, because that would be really helpful. Here, I'm seeing the TVL link and the port. Yeah, the portal is something that. Okay, let's start with give me some of the give us some of those metrics. I'm going to share them with everyone else.
Yeah, no problem. On Arbitrum today, there's somewhere between like 2 to 3 billion in TVL. I know we have around 400 to 500 live dApps that's on Arbitrum, and it feels like every single week, a lot of teams are just launching on Arbitrum, which is a great sign of product market fit. More specifically, we've started getting integrations with Nansen Pro and like a Dune Analytics. I hope to have more Dune dashboards in the future, but if you pull up Nansen Pro right now, you can see like unique 30-day active addresses. There's about 400,000 for that, which is wow. I think a pretty healthy sign. And and also like our our daily transactions too has been also steadily kind of trending upwards, and it's not just because of the Arbitrum Odyssey. I think it's also because of just organic growth that we've had on the platform. And like the interesting thing about it too is like we have no token. So unlike a lot of other teams that are out there, that have tokens and have token incentives, we don't have a token. And so I think it's just amazing that we've been able to get to the position that we're at today.
Well, I think there's, that because the token incentives and the good, the bad, and the ugly of sort of, of that can drive a lot of traffic, right? It can be fleeting. It can be whatever you want to call it, depending on the chain and the moment and the whatever.
Mercenary by nature too, in terms of usage.
It definitely helps on usage, right? When driving. So is there, so if there is no token, maybe this is like one of the most basic questions of transacting on Arbitrum is, do you need a token for gas fees? Do you use Ethereum tokens or wrapped Ethereum? What do you use? Is there gas? How does it work?
We use ETH. So so that's the beauty of Arbitrum is, if you're transacting on Dolomite or any of these other dApps, they all use ETH. And so the biggest thing for us is like, we want to try to have bridges to make it easy for users to get on Arbitrum. So today, for example, like there's a ton of fast bridges like Hopseller Connect, Stargate from Layer 0, Synapse, a bunch of these that make it easy for users to get on Arbitrum. And then the other nice thing, and by the way, all of this also benefits Dolomite, which is awesome. But we also have a lot of exchange support. So we have support from Binance, FTX, Huobi, Crypto.com. Coinbase is also an investor in Off-Chain Labs. So you can imagine, in the future, they could possibly add support. So we want to try to make it as easy as possible for users to get on Arbitrum and transact on there. And that's what we're focused on.
I always thought that was a really tough, weird part of moving to another layer was I understand that if I'm moving from Ethereum to Tezos, right, and it's a totally separate chain and it's a totally separate thing, and I want to be a part of that community, I swap over, right? Or I go and I buy Tezos, I send it there. Like it makes sense. But when people are building these EVMs and these layer 2s, and I'm connecting with the same wallet, right? And I'm connecting with the same wallet address and everything else, it always felt weird to have to own this other token just to transact. And was that done on purpose, like as a thoughtful thing? Is it just that you haven't launched your token yet? Like what's what was the main reason? Are you going to launch a token? Does it make sense to?
To answer the first question, it was definitely just a thoughtful thing and a design choice that the team went with using ETH. And I think from a user perspective, it makes a lot of sense. Like, for example, if you go on these dApps, like let's say Dolomite, for example, they'll just say like switch to Arbitrum. So it's very easy from the user's point of view to just switch and then just start using it, which is awesome. To answer the second question, can't really comment on that, but appreciate it. we get it a lot.
And just to talk more about the gas part of the question anyway, from like a developer point of view and also an end user, Arbitrum essentially derives its gas prices that are charged in the network from what Ethereum itself charges. And the proportionality in terms of like, if you pay $1 on Ethereum, you pay, call it a penny on Arbitrum, has to do with like all the compression, the layer 2 efficiencies that they essentially are taking advantage of when charging, from one to another. So even if Arbitrum had its own token, I would argue that it doesn't make sense to pay for those gas fees with its own token, at least not making it mandatory, because calculating what the fee should be would be extremely difficult. It's very easy because you pay, in terms of like doing the roll up and actually paying for that security on Ethereum, all that stuff that I like to talk about and boast about behind the scenes that happens. Projecting the cost for that and then charging the end user becomes dramatically more complicated because these roll-up producers are all paying their fees in Ethereum. So it makes sense that they should be charging the end user in that as well. Or else you find yourself in funky scenarios where, like, if there were an Arbitrum token and if they were paying gas fees with it, they probably have to charge some extra premium for it that wasn't otherwise baked into the cost. It becomes less transparent. Some people are upset about it because now they're not paying the right fees, and becomes much more complicated than it needs to be.
The idea of choice of which token you pay for gas fee kind of is radical if you could somehow on chain fast enough and clean enough do like a swap in the middle of a transaction, right? Like, and then all of a sudden you could almost like the community can decide which tokens have enough volume, which tokens are legitimate enough, or maybe it's just Arbitrum and ETH, right? And then you almost can like, I have no idea if you could have as speedy of a transaction if you want, or maybe there's just, I don't know, thinking about that sounds kind of fun, because I would love to just, when I transact in general, every once in a while you realize you're doing a transaction, you have like fractions of an ETH in a particular wallet, and you're like, ooh, what's the gas look like right now? Because I might not be able to even make it with the amount of ETH I have. I'd be able to just choose my ape token or something to pay the gas fee, and it would be, that idea just sounds fun.
Yeah, I know Polkadot in particular has explored the idea of having different tokens to pay for gas fees, but I think on the Ethereum side, it's just a lot easier to kind of stick with paying ETH itself.
Yeah,
and,
I think
it would have a lot of hidden overhead on a technical level as well that would probably slow down the chain, having to add like that extra layer of abstraction to it and potentially doing all these internal things.
It could be like a secondary feature for a good wallet, right? Like if in MetaMask they did it, it wouldn't be that hard for them, especially on a layer 2 where the transactions are fast and almost instant, versus Ethereum. You could almost like a batch transaction, swap ape for ETH, then use the ETH for the gas fee kind of thing as a batch. Although it would then cost more gas, and then you're doubling up. But if you were going to go over to Uniswap or whatever, swap something and then use it as the gas fee, you're doing that anyway. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think one thing I heard from the Polygon team is that they're actually switching their model. So right now on the Polygon proof of stake chain, you pay with Matic to do anything on their network. But on their ZK rollup, they're actually going to use ETH as the native gas token, and Matic's just going to be a staking token. Yeah.
Interesting. I think honestly, when you told me that ETH was the token for gas, I don't know if it's psychological, but it made me feel better about it. Like I like that idea, because I guess we're just so used to it. We've been doing it for years on Ethereum, and so it just feels like that's like the token you use for gas. And then it's interesting though, because then there's one less use case for the chains token though. If you do have guys that ever launch a token, or like what do I use my Matic for if not for gas on their network? Like I don't know.
Well, in their case, it'd be for staking, but yeah, just because Ethereum is obviously a big token on their chain as well as Matic. They use it for collateral within DeFi. It's widely accepted and has strong network effects there, so it has a bit of like a monetary use case within their ecosystem. I would imagine if there were some kind of Arbitrum token, it'd probably fall under a similar thing like that. But regardless, something interesting earlier that you were asking about was, in terms of like end users usage of Arbitrum, what that looked like. But something interesting I wanted to make sure I touched on as well was the developer ecosystem, what that looks like, and kind of why the users are on Arbitrum right now, especially without any native incentives to be there. I think it mainly relates to like the sophistication and the DeFi protocols and the things that are being built on there. We're not necessarily just seeing like copy paste things that exist on Ethereum being moved over there. I'm not trying to necessarily poke jabs at any one particular chain, but one thing that we saw happen like right after Binance Smart Chain launched was plenty of DeFi protocols like Uniswap being forked countless times over there, and then new models being produced. There's obviously been some clear winners over there and some strong TVL, some strong usage of their chain, but there hasn't been like very sophisticated or different breakout dApps on there, in my opinion. But something that has made Arbitrum extremely unique is I've seen developers take advantage of the cheap compute power that exists in Arbitrum, so that once again from an end user perspective, that looks like lower gas fees. Developers build more sophisticated things that otherwise would not be possible on Ethereum, either because of speed or because of cost, now exist in Arbitrum, and end users are loving that experience.
Yeah, so that's actually where I was gonna go kind of next, right? Because I did sidetrack a little and go down that path because it was just an interesting thought to me when I think Peter said something about choice, and I was like, wait, but you mentioned the things that the reasons why you built Dolomite on Arbitrum over the others, and you're talking now about compute power and things like that. Can you tell everyone a little bit more about Dolomite and what kind of stuff are you computing and what are you doing that's so sophisticated or whatever that makes you need this, right? Because I think we're all used to DEXs, right? And I think that a lot of people in our community were probably exposed to DEXs and stuff earlier, thanks to you talking to us about it years ago, but also like David Blesnak with Total and things like that, and me just being a nerd for some of this stuff. What are you going to do differently on Dolomite? Like, what makes it a different style DEX than every other one that exists already?
Yeah, so I mean, looking at like Ethereum as an example, like a lot of the new DEX protocols that come out nowadays, or whenever like Uniswap had worked on a new version, it was always a race to the bottom of like how cheap we can get our gas fees just to do a really simple token swap. And instead, like Adam being my other co-founder on Dolomite, instead said, like, what if we just didn't have to care about gas and we could just do like anything sophisticated we wanted to? Obviously, we don't want to do things inefficiently for the sake of inefficiency because we don't have to program efficiently on a cheap chain. But more so, like, what if we just didn't have to worry about that and we could build sophistication, build cool things into our protocol at a base layer? So at a high level, like Dolomite to DEX, you could trade on it, you could swap tokens. You'll be able to trade those tokens with leverage, but it's spot settled, so it's not synthetic. So there's actual tokens being exchanged back and forth. You can borrow on it. But what if we could, at a lower level than that, offer the ability to stack Dolomite within other layers of the DeFi stack, or integrate other tokens within Dolomite so that people can take positions in other protocols or staking derivatives or other complex tokens, layer that within Dolomite so they can hedge their position better, or be able to take out multiple borrow positions within the same wallet address instead of having to constantly transfer funds within different wallets in order to open up different borrow positions. I mean, these are just a couple of the minor things that Dolomite is able to do that other protocols don't necessarily offer, or on other chains like Ethereum where it's more expensive really can't, because either the cost for the end user grows massively where it's just not feasible for them, or on the other hand, the maintenance of the protocol will grow to be too large where liquidators can't do their job. The protocol can't maintain its solvency because it's just too expensive gas-wise for them to do a simple liquidation, unless the liquidation were for like $1 million plus position. So we're opening up network effects for smaller players and big players to interact within the same pond and not worry about any of those costs, whether it's on a maintenance level, like I said, or on the end user interacting with it.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that I love about this space and blockchain in general is we get to interact with people around the world all day long. And if you're working on a DEX, theoretically, at least, every single person has access to it, right? And then, gas got out of control at a certain point because we felt like gas was expensive, right? When it was 25, 50 cents, $1 a transaction back in the day. And it got even worse, right? So, those things, maybe a $50 transaction isn't insane when you're, talking about $100,000 or $1 million trade. But it is insane when you're talking about the normal amounts of dollars most of us transact in, and most of us are, I know Peter and I are in California. Corey, you're in Jersey. We're all in the United States, right? Our idea of a small transaction is probably a very large transaction to some people in the world. And so if we're talking about building a borderless, fair, global, product and future, we can't, these things are big gatekeepers to people participating. I want to dive into what you said before, Corey, while you were explaining it. You mentioned layering different positions, borrowing transactions for multiple wallets and things like that. Can you dive in, just give us a little more detail on what you mean by that, right? So I think most of us have, borrowed crypto and used crypto as collateral on a DeFi product. At least I think most of us in the blockchain and booze community have. What's going to be different about that on Dolomite, and how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you take a step back and look at other protocols, for example, you might notice on Compound or Aave, they generally have 10, 20, 30 markets listed. Aave at one point launched an AMM style market, which was its own separate pool. It had different risk profiles to it. They're starting to get more expressive now with their version 3, which is really cool, and doing cross-chain oriented things. But generally speaking, the number of assets tends to be capped. It can be for a variety of reasons depending on how it was engineered. But with Dolomite, we're able to list hundreds, if not thousands, of assets within the same protocol. Still central pooling, so we have that great capital efficiency of if someone deposits USDC, it doesn't matter if they put up their ETH as collateral, some staked ETH derivative token as collateral, an AMM token as collateral. They can all borrow that same USDC, so things aren't necessarily siloed. But it gets a bit interesting though when you think about different tokens that different risk profiles associated with it. So we can still fine tune the risk profiling of each token that's listed within the protocol, but we don't need to silo liquidity, which can otherwise segment things and result in some inefficient borrow rates for lenders, or sometimes it's not enough liquidity for people that want to borrow certain assets then. But where this gets interesting is there aren't, of course, hundreds or thousands of tokens you might want to realistically list if you scroll through CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap. But there potentially could be, as you think about derivative tokens or staked counterparts or things like that. An excellent example of this is GMX has their GLP liquidity token, but then they also have a staked variant of that that they call staked GLP. They also have their GMX token. They have an escrow GMX token. That's one ecosystem that potentially could produce 5 to 10 tokens right there, especially as their protocol evolves. And being able to seamlessly integrate those within Dolomite without having to bat an eye at it or choose your assets very carefully because at some point you're going to hit some limitation of 100 tokens is a great burden to just lift off your shoulders, because our high-level goal with Dolomite is to really situate it as a public utility where any protocol that wants to take advantage of Dolomite, if they own if they're able to produce a governance proposal that says, hey, we should list our token in there, or we should list our token dynamically, they should be able to do that. And Dolomite can exist as this public utility for other projects to take advantage of the margin lending capabilities and the hedging capabilities that the platform itself offers.
So that I understand it correctly, or at least so I reiterate it, and you can tell me if I understand it correctly, is where you're saying is that a lot of these decentralized products, right, have limitations, technical limitations that make it the idea that they're just choosing a certain number of tokens isn't just them kind of cherry picking the ones that they think are the best or whatever. A lot of times it's an actual technical limitation. And as a DEX, you want to allow anyone basically to add any token, or any community to at least vote on allowing any token that they have into the mix. And you can have a pretty much unlimited amount of tokens and markets within the product.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it. It's still worth mentioning that, like, as an end user, while there might be hundreds or thousands of tokens you could pick from this list to be able to add to a position or borrow, within one account index on Dolomite, you're able to have 32 assets as collateral. So there's still some kind of cap in there, but it's 32 assets from a potentially very large list. And one of the distinctions
when you say that, I want to learn more about that. Is that kind of like a balancer pool where I can put multiple tokens and choose like the percentage of how it's balanced, or is it different than that? What do you mean by up to 32 in one account?
Yeah, so I think the next part of what I was going to say would, I think, clarify that a bit better.
Okay.
Like, if you ever used like other money market protocols, like the Aves, Compounds of the world, you'll notice that, like, when you interact with it, it's just like from your wallet to the protocol, you borrow, goes into your wallet. That's basically it. Dolomite has this account index system where your wallet interacts with the protocol, but then you could have an infinite number of sub indices underneath there. And those sub indices can be used for various borrow positions. Any one of those borrow positions can have up to 32 collateral/borrowed assets within them, which is sufficiently large, I think, for almost any use case. The 32 is kind of an arbitrary number. We could raise that a bit if necessary, but I think it's beyond what's really needed by any reasonable account. But what's really neat with that is, as an end user, you don't need to go ahead and transfer assets from one wallet to another if you wanted to open up a new borrow position within Dolomite or a new margin position. Rather, it's as simple as go to Dolomite, deposit your assets, and just go make a new one, all done from within the same wallet, no extra overhead necessary.
So sort of like having multiple vaults from one wallet, but on Dolomite, and all of their sort of borrowing power can be combined and work together.
The borrowing power itself would still be siloed within these individual sub accounts, so we don't like muddy the waters of making things too complicated for the user, but also tough for the protocol to compute where the risk lies, because they could have like one borrow position that's like ultra degen where they're using maximum leverage, and then like one safer one where they're keeping more of their portfolio value and potentially farming tokens, or just simply lending their tokens out for people to borrow against and earn yield on it.
Gotcha. Really cool. We're gonna have to do like another hang session, either as Blockchain Booze, or maybe I will like live stream it on my Twitter account just so we have it like publicly watchable, because I'm sure I'll ask a lot of the same questions that are coming through other people's heads, where we actually just do like a like legit just Dolomite live demo. Maybe I'll just connect my wallet and make some trades and do some stuff and cause some trouble.
Yeah, that would be great. And I think, like, I don't want to get too caught up in the mix of like, oh, Corey's obsessed with the sophistication of what he has built, because I think for a lot of end users, it doesn't really matter all that much. Like some of this cool stuff I'm talking about, I think it matters more so for the integrations we're looking to pursue with Dolomite. And those integrations will take advantage of it so that the end users can reap the rewards from it. Like being able to like do complicated hedges isn't something that most people want to do or might feel comfortable doing. But because Dolomite is an immutable, trustless protocol, other products can build on top of it and take advantage of that sophistication to offer something really cool and simple to their end users then. And that's what we're really excited about with it.
Yeah, that's something I should really throw out there too. Like I'm asking all these really deep questions, and one of the reasons why I love Corey and Adam and the Dolomite crew, and I mentioned Total earlier, and one of the reasons why I fell in love with Total originally was they're taking these really complicated things like a decentralized exchange and creating even more features on top of it, making it different. Total back in the day was the first group to create a DEX aggregator, right? They were the first people to do those kind of things, but they didn't do it in this crazy complicated way. When you use the product, it was actually usable and easy to understand for someone like me, when it was brand new, right? Like, because back in the day, you were talking about like Ether Delta or, total, right? There wasn't really much difference. Uniswap came a little later, and even the first versions of Uniswap were complicated as hell for someone who wasn't, very sophisticated. And that's what's really, really important. So I will say that, I'm asking all these really weird questions, but I've seen parts of the product. I've seen the product that Dolomite is building. It's not as complicated as it sounds. I just know that they're doing the work for us behind the scenes, right? And I think that's the important part. Peter, I mean, your Dolomite isn't the only thing you're seeing that's being built on Arbitrum. It might be the first thing I'm seeing built on there, but can you give us other examples of unique products being built on Arbitrum that are, different from maybe their counterparts on Ethereum or elsewhere in the ecosystem?
Yeah, I think Corey did a good job earlier of kind of highlighting this, but the benefit that Arbitrum has isn't just like lower gas cost savings. It's also like more computation. So for example, with our recent Arbitrum Nitro upgrade, we actually have 7x the computational capacity of Ethereum, which is, really critical for, projects like GMX and others that are, building on top of Arbitrum, to take advantage of that. And so for like the Arbitrum native projects, I could share a link to DeFi Llama where you can, I don't know, did I share it? I did not share it. So I'll just paste it in the private chat if you want to share it later with the audience. But you can see some of these teams that are ranked on top here. So like GMX is like a perpetual based exchange. Radiance, this type of money market that exists on layer 0, which is pretty interesting. We also have like DopeX, which is an options-based product. All of these products are like, you just can't do them on Ethereum. Maybe in a bear market, you can do them on Ethereum because the gas costs are lower, but even then, it's just really not feasible. And so I think...
Yeah, I mean, having to wait, keep in mind, 12 seconds for a slot to get produced on Ethereum. So you're waiting at a minimum 12 seconds for your transaction to go through versus having pretty much instant finality, or not finality technically, but instant confirmation on Arbitrum is so important.
To somewhat lower fees. And even then, I used to give the example, like imagine when you were a kid, and I don't know, I used to do this all the time. Like we would have like in somebody's garage, basically we'd be like trading comic books or trading comic book cards, right? So I didn't trade as much baseball cards or like basketball cards like my brothers did, but me and my group of friends were trading like, man, I've got the Marvel Masterpieces Wolverine, and you've got the Silver Foil Edition Silver Surfer, whatever. And we were going to trade it. And imagine like us going, okay, I want to make that trade. And then one of our parents jumping between us and throwing their hands up and be like, you each have to give me $1 before you can do this, right? Like that's how I think of like the gas fees right now. And it's insane, right? Because even if you're just trading something, swapping something, there's still some value that has to be exchanged. I sent somebody a test transaction yesterday or the day before, and it was 0.001 Ethereum or something like that. It was like $5 or $6 worth of Ethereum, and it cost me like $1.50 and I didn't try to optimize gas or anything. I just did the suggested gas fee, but like that's not okay, right? Like, and so that alone, plus like what Corey's saying, the 12 seconds is not instant, right? And that makes it like almost impossible to test things and learn to trust it, because I'm not going to test something with thousands of dollars because the gas fees are going to make it more make more sense. I'm going to still test things with $10, $20, play around, goof around, and then go, okay, this is cool. But if I have to spend, again, maybe me, because it's part of my business, it's part of my life, and it's, I'm used to it, maybe I will. But if we're talking about onboarding new people and onboarding people around the world, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, I think Vitalik has a famous quote or somewhere that says like the internet of value shouldn't cost more than like, what was it, 5 cents or like 10 cents. And I think if you look on the L2 fees website that I shared, Arbitrum's actually like around there or lower, which is great to see. The other thing that I would say is Corey's point is like really critical. The point that he's saying about the confirmation time on Ethereum, you do wait about 12 seconds. It feels like like dial-up internet. If you remember back in the day, it's like kind of waiting for the transaction to confirm in the mempool. On Arbitrum, we have a sequencer, which is this mechanism in the rollup that batches the transactions together and then processes it. And the sequencer, you get like almost like a 1 second confirmation time. So it feels like this next generation experience. Like you do a trade and then you get an instant confirmation.
Yeah, it's like as soon as you even press the confirm button on MetaMask, and the data is even like reflected your transaction on the site, I'm already getting confirmation from MetaMask that the transaction went through, was successful, which is awesome. But if you think about like, you know, the future of DeFi, like being able to offer more leverage, more complicated products, fast moving portfolios, fast moving tokens, that sort of thing can exist on Ethereum even today with 12-second slot times, because you need to be able to send transactions through quicker or with stronger assertions around that timing, and that's what Arbitrum is able to offer. But
exactly.
I wanted to also just touch on like part of what I see from a developer as being so exciting on Arbitrum. Like he talked about like GMX being a popular product and DopeX, decentralized options exchange, as being another popular product. And those are two products that are building very distinct things, one being perpetuals and a swap mechanism, and one being options. But they're actually combining forces in a unique way to offer something that I haven't seen done before anywhere, let alone in DeFi, which is combining the two together to offer unliquidatable positions if you use like essentially a DopeX option to essentially to I guess save or ensure your perpetual position, which it's been really tough to solve for the, you know, there's very unique problems in certain things with certain financial instruments and DeFi, and they effectively, in a roundabout way, figured out how to offer under collateralized loans in the DeFi sector, like through this crazy integration. And there's other things they're working on with it. And seeing that kind of experimentation, going back to an earlier point I mentioned, it just feels like early DeFi where there's so much cool things, so many cool things being built, so much experimentation happening. The uniqueness and just the developer mindshare is amazing, and that's the kind of thing that Dolomite wants to tap into with offering its product to them, to people on Arbitrum, that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think our space, people have been using the sort of Lego building block analogy forever, right? And going, okay, you know, all these building blocks exist in different places, but it looks like with what you're talking about, they're fitting together in a way that's creating this whole new, you know, product or type of product. And it sounds kind of like, I don't know. I always said that the you know, somebody is going to build the solutions to the problems DeFi creates within DeFi. And I love the idea. For example, we talked about this for centralized exchanges at one point where people got kind of rugged, or maybe that's not the right term, but people got liquidated when there were some of those like flash crashes, right? And when you were in the DeFi world, you just got liquidated if you weren't fast enough or you weren't online that moment or whatever. In the centralized world, there were opportunities for, you know, people to be called by customer support people and be like, hey, you've got 24 hours to fix this, right? Or by the time a centralized exchange could potentially liquidate you or talk to you about it, the flash crash was over and you were still fine and you weren't liquidated because you have like a grace period or something like that. And, you know, it turns out some of those places, those centralized places, were places that kind of fell apart over the last few months, right? And you know, it turned out that the ugly side of being centralized got to some of the users, right? Not all of them. Some of them were very responsible, and that didn't happen. Some of them were less responsible, and they got liquidated way worse than getting a liquidation, you know, getting liquidated in DeFi, right? I think it's kind of the DeFi community that will save the day. You know, I don't know. I'm kind of rambling, but I think you guys know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. And maybe another thing I would add to that is I think DeFi ends up becoming, as you mentioned, like the building block for like these other use cases. So we kind of see this with NFTs taking off, but also like in the gaming space, I think gaming could also be a great mechanism to get a lot of like mainstream users on board. And then I think DeFi will just see a lot of ancillary benefits from that because all these users will come on board and then they'll also be interacting with DeFi. But, hopefully we can make it a more seamless experience for users. That'll be good.
Yeah. What's really cool, I don't know if I mentioned this on Blockchain Booze a few weeks ago, or it was just a random call, like all these things blend in and I kind of just assume everything I say is to the world, but like, I know it's like, that's this world we live in right now. But we all kind of thought and expected gaming to bring the mass adoption of people into our space, right? And I think it still can happen. And especially if like you said, Arbitrum is 7x more compute power than Ethereum, then I think it even opens up more opportunities for games and digital assets and digital goods within games. Like I lost that little token I've been showing everyone for weeks that said glorious mullet for Roblox that one of my kids left on my desk. But like these things are what's, the future is going to look like. But it's funny, we expected games to be this big mass adoption opportunity. But I think one of the biggest mass adoption events that happened more recently was, not super, but when Dogecoin pumped and, Mark Cuban decided he was going to take it as payment in the Maverick Stadium or whatever. Like more people bought Dogecoin that didn't own any crypto than sort of any single random event. And, I think some of these memes, some of this goofiness, but some of just mainstream, just mainstream finding out about this stuff and maybe playing around and goofing around ends up creating some interesting adoption opportunities. That said, I think Ben is absolutely right. He said LOL, and then they got wrecked. I know. I will tell you that a few people in my life were mad at me for a little while when I told them do not buy Dogecoin with your credit card. And for at least a few weeks, they were all pissed at me. And I think now, hopefully,
I think they were grateful a lot longer than they were pissed for. At least I hope. But the whole entire the gaming thing that you mentioned.
They swapped it for some ETH or something, and then I'm stoked for them. But going into that, right? Like that is an interesting thing, right? Because we think about it in games. I think that's a huge possibility. We think about it in NFTs. Now we're talking about DeFi and maybe some of the speculation of random tokens. I think it all kind of can fit together too, because I think at the end of the day, we don't all kind of just do one thing, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking out loud here, but it's...
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on which part of DeFi you're looking at or which part of gaming you're looking at. And this is part of the reason why Arbitrum Nova exists, which I'm sure Peter will be happy to talk about more elaborately in a second. But, to give at least my 2-second spiel on it, I don't think that hardcore DeFi should exist on Nova, but there probably will be some cool DeFi dApps that exist on there because, Nova's purpose is to lower costs even further than what Arbitrum could, at a little bit of an expense of security. But gaming doesn't really need security the same way that hardcore DeFi dApps would. So there's a certain part of that Venn diagram where those two pieces will come together and it's going to be awesome. That'll probably more likely happen on an Arbitrum Nova, which I'll shut up for a second so that Peter can talk more about it.
Tell us a little about that. We're hitting our time and I'm realizing we're going to have a whole other conversation just about Arbitrum ecosystem and bring some.
Or we can do a cliffhanger. Keep people excited.
We're definitely going to have to do that. No, I want to hear Arbitrum Nova before we go. We can go over it. I mean, there's no real rules, but I mean,
sure. I'll try to give a short pitch on it. So Arbitrum Nova, the main difference between Arbitrum 1 is that Arbitrum Nova has a data availability committee as opposed to posting the call data back to Ethereum, which is what Arbitrum 1 does. And so with the data availability committee, we're working with teams like Google Cloud, Reddit, P2P Validator, and others. And so a lot of reputable folks, and that's how we're able to keep the costs lower. The main reason for that is that, Ethereum's working on sharding. There's proposals out there like EIP 4844, the proto-dank sharding stuff, but it's not available yet. And I don't know if it'll get the cost as low. And so we want to be able to provide a great experience, for games and for social, for users so that they can, take advantage of the lower costs there. And so in that vein, our team has been working with Reddit to scale their community points. We won this contest called the Great Scaling Bake Off that happened about 2 years ago. And so Reddit launched 2 of their subreddits on there. So there's the R cryptocurrency one and also the Minecraft subreddit. And they ported about 170,000 users that's using Arbitrum Nova, which is really exciting.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Is the idea behind that is to focus on use cases that want to just do mass amounts of on-chain transactions, like every little transaction goes on-chain versus settles on-chain but happens somewhere else maybe?
Yeah, and also, just having the lower fees in general. Like I think what I brought up was like, to send ETH on Arbitrum One right now, it's like between like 3 cents, 5 cents, somewhere around there. It's relatively low, but on Arbitrum Nova, it can be like 0.003 or something like that.
Yeah.
So kind of in the Polygon range. Yeah.
That's really cool. Nice. That's really awesome. Corey, what have I missed today that we might want to just touch on and before we forget, but then I'll give you guys one last time to kind of where we can follow you guys. And then, like I said, we're going to have to do a whole Arbitrum community session where I get to meet some of these folks doing other products too. And then we're going to have to probably do like a Dolomite hang session where I actually play with we'll maybe do a demo or something so people can see it.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think that we touched on a lot of the high-level points I wanted to mention with Dolomite. But next week we'll be doing a soft launch of Dolomite. Base protocol will be there. That's not going to change. It's all immutable. But in terms of features and other things we're working on, different modules to plug into it, it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint. So base capabilities will be there. Some of the cool things that take advantage of our sophistication will be either a combination of shortly after launch to potentially months after it. But that's the cool thing with it. We're looking at a variety of ways to be able to use Dolomite to help build better DeFi products and have it contribute to the overall Arbitrum ecosystem. And we're really excited to see that happen. And it's all going to start happening as soon as next week.
Nice. That's exciting. So that will guarantee that at least I play a little bit on Arbitrum. So I'll probably have a million more questions and also a million more fun things to talk about. So we're definitely gonna have to do it again. Peter, where can everyone follow you? And I think the main good link is probably this one, right? The portal.arbitrum.one. That's but where can people follow you directly?
Sure. So I'm on Twitter. I'm just at Peter Haymond. I can try to post that in here if people want to try to follow me on Twitter. And then I would say for Arbitrum, definitely follow Arbitrum on Twitter. We have now over 300,000 followers, which is awesome. And we'll definitely be sharing more updates there with the rest of the community.
Nice. That's awesome. Corey, give us, I know yours is, Corey Caplan 3, but I'm going to post it in the community chat right now. But it's dolomite.io, right?
Yeah, dolomite.io is the website. You'll see right now it's just a very teasery landing page until we cut the ribbon on it.
I'm going to refresh 18 times a day until then.
Yeah, hopefully we make sure we fix the caching policy then, so you're not stuck on the old page, in perpetuity. But no, kidding aside though, it's Dolomite_IO is our Twitter page. We'll be doing some announcements from there. I'm sure we'll be doing some nice back and forth and shit posting between that and DGH.
Yes, I'll definitely be posting a lot about it. I'll be asking questions of Corey live for the community I'll put him to the fire. It'll be a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to give another last minute plug to LA Blockchain Summit. Anybody who's watching, follow my account. I think I'll be posting some discount codes and stuff too over the next few days because the early bird tickets are now over and I want you guys to get discounts. So, and if you are watching on one of the streams right now and you want to turn on your camera and hang out with us, go to blockchainboost.io. It'll redirect you to the DGH events site. But so don't be surprised when you end up on a site that's not blockchainboost.io. And you'll be able to turn on your camera, hang out with the community. I'll be there right now for at least 10 minutes or so until I have to have dinner with my family, and then I'll be back on late tonight. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Peter, for joining us. Welcome to the Blockchain Booze community. Thanks, Corey, for joining again, and we'll see you guys both soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Alon.
See you guys.